So if you look at my bone structure, I'm going to start to see the black gray and the black tar heron goo, because I am now in an ore bone cook. I'm still an unmarked griffin. I have about 1,500 pages written right now. But I am in an actual ore bone cook. We will see how long it will take me to do. I did the initiation for Bina today with one of my students who's doing a Kabbalah 101 program. And we had started this program years ago. We started this program to the point where when we were in Tiferet was during the middle of my hunger strike. And we're just at Bina now. We started in about 2017. And when I was building the Khaleesi temple, we were in Netzach. So just to give you a frame of reference, that Kabbalah class with Chris is the Earth Star. It was the Earth Star anchor for Kabbalah. And we got the very clear message from God that this was the legitimate one. I had made a really stupid agreement with myself. I wasn't going to be teaching Kabbalah anymore. Because the previous class I had taught literally wore me to pieces. And then Chris showed up and I was like, yeah, I'll take you up the tree. And then I did my hunger strike. And then I was like, yeah, that's the only thing I have left to do on this planet is educate. And then it was like, oh, all of magic is... Okay. So we have the rest of the elements, including earth. So let's bring that in. So we're going to fill in our yoke around our home, around the tower, including the 4 other tower points, with earth. Now, if you see the other towers needing to connect with metal wires, to bring in the earth element, it may show that they are spirally connecting in a clockwise way. And they might be plugging into the different brick layers. And anchoring into the grid. Now there are 2 ways to do this. You can just bring the earth element in, or you can mimic what we just did on our central tower, on the other 4 towers, and go earth 1, and then go earth 2, fill it up, earth 3, fill it up, earth 4, metal spikes, grid the bricks, the griffin blue, fill it up with the earth. Earth 4, the metal spikes, with a metal grid through every brick. And then maybe the other 4 towers light up, and then fill up the earth element. And then the next is the 4 towers light up with the Patronus Lotus for the spirit element. And then it wraps up like a spider and Shelob, because it's the etheric element coming through. And then everything connects. And then you might start seeing a spider web going in between all the different towers. So that's our like earth spider. That's coming in from Tiferet. And then you might see God dump an entire bucket of spiders with the element of earth to begin to weave in the etheric healing grids into our body and our brain. And it's supposed to heal the element within our body and our mind. And then we might dump another layer of earth on top of everything else. Like we're burying the spiders, and the spiders just, you know what the spiders do is they crawl up out of the earth, and then they get wrap around the ball and start to weave webs, or they dig holes in the earth and create tunnel systems with the webs. Even earth is porous. It helps you feel grounded and stable. If you don't like all my extra rhetoric with life lessons and things that I'm going through, or the different challenges of GEBURAH, later down the road, when we have money and a team, I'm going to hire out all of this work to take the content material and edit me and my stories out of it. Some people are like, that makes it so soulless, though. Yes, but it does make it more marketable, and we can just make animations and other formulas to some of the magic where we can either sell it and like sell CDs. I don't really want to, or like downloads, right? Or sell animations and videos of all the meditations and the demonstrations of the eggs, etc., etc. So that's an idea for the future, etc. Okay, so here we have the main yoke around our home. Now we're gonna fill up the city with the element of earth. So remember the city dot. And then we have the towers around the city. And we're going to go first layer earth, second layer earth, third layer earth, fourth layer earth, fifth layer light up, and then earth. And we continue to fill up the city with earth. And then God's going to throw a bunch more spiders all over the place. We have spiders everywhere in our backyard right now. And the webs are just these giant. And that's the animal totem coming through, and that's for Tiferet. Fill up earth around the city. Earth, earth, earth. And then we're going to go and we're going to fill up the yolk around from the city point into the entire yolk around our main yolk. So that includes the giant central column, our twin or our other tower point, like mine's in Austin. So then we have that. So we just start to dump the element. And then that could include the placenta, if your placenta is very close to mine, or it's like right in that same yolk area. And then I'm going to do layer 1, earth element layer 1, on the 4 tower structures, including the central one. In fact, I'm going to do a special treatment on the central tower. We're porcupining everything through on the central tower, so the central spine. And go earth element 1, porcupine out. Make sure it connects to every brick. Grit it, Griffin blew it. And then dump the earth in, layer 1. And with the central tower, it acts as an alpha, and it begins to make the other towers vibrate and resonate at that same level. Because it's usually much stronger. And it's also, like we did a lot of extra activations on it with the Hufflepuff egg. Okay, so then we go all right. And the earth, like God sends 1 spider, 1, into the central tower. Now 1 spider is going to lay an egg sac and then create 50 billion eggs of spiders for the earth element. And they're going to crawl all up and down that central column. And to begin to create an etheric neural network. Okay, now what we're going to do is make sure that the central tower porcupines to every other tower, up and down every other tower, and connects. Then we're going to create like a protego metal mesh. And we're going to make the pearlescent beads at every intersect be the element earth beads. And then we're going to start to see them turn into egg sacs of more spiders to weave more grids. All right. Now, let's do earth element layer 2. The second layer of brick. Metal grids. Metal grids. And then Griffin blue paste or paint. And then dump that earth element into the tower and all the other towers. And you can include your home again. You always keep going with your home. And then throughout the entire yoke, make sure it porcupines out again to every tower from the central column to every single point. Make sure the Seraphim Soul Star points are included on those access towers. It's okay if you forgot on the other ones, on the little ones next to your home or your city. You just include them now, wire them up. What I would do is I would do 5 wires, 1 for each layer of earth element to each tower. And just wrap them around. It can be very simple. Okay. So we're on earth element layer 2, earth element layer 3. Oh my goodness. Just make sure that the earth is like burying all the spiders and the grids. From the central column, porcupine that out to the 3rd layer of the tower. And through. Each brick. Griffin blue paste. Or paint. And then dump that earth element on it. And then it porcupines out to all the other towers, connects, intersects. Earth element 3 is dumped on. So we really need to get that primary, these primary grids. All right, earth element layer 4. From the central column. It's starting to light up. From the central column, porcupine out to the 4th layer of the bricks, and you start to see all the other ones begin to light up from the outside because we're on layer 4. Then make sure it goes through layer 4 on all the bricks, and then Griffin blue paint, and then dump the earth element on it. And then we go Make sure that intersects to every other tower, and it's starting to already intersect with all the other towers. So we're starting to get a better communications network of elemental healing. Okay, so that sometimes the more we do the work, we're just repairing major holes in the etheric system. And so we don't always have to do the same thing all the time, every day. It's like telling an in-shape person they need to do the same level of diet and exercise as somebody who's not in shape, and they actually might have a better metabolism and not need as much healing, or this is empty rhetoric for people as enlightened as you. But it sometimes helps us remember what we need to do and prioritize. Okay, so the next is layer 5, or just dump layer 4 all throughout the entire structure. Layer 4 earth. And then we have layer 5 earth through the central column, going through the lit areas, the lit bricks. And it says, I never want to lose my elemental connections ever again. That's the communications. Yes, that is accurate. I never want to lose my elemental connections ever again. That's a very deep reminder of how much I really don't have much of my elemental connections. So if I can even repair the damage done to my elemental connections, that would be good. If I could get that done in like 5 to 10 years, I'd be happy. Okay. Yeah, this Gryffindor is like mostly for the Nexus system to make sure like we clean up everything so that we actually qualify for better magic in life. All right. Okay, so now we're at dumping the element level 5 through the yolk. And then at the same time, we're gonna dump all the same things through the world shell. 1 through 5, and then it should be like on an auto spiral to grid the towers the same way. So if we can fill the planet with the element of earth, and then you're going to see the net and the mesh throughout the planet, and we're gridding the element of earth. We're making sure that the earth beads are in there on each intersect, and they might be accompanied with a Yoda Balls bead to do any purification of any excess Slytherin damage or anything else. Anything that was filthy. So it would be like a brown bead next to a Cobra Acid bead. And that's just on the mesh, the metal mesh. And there we go. And then it goes through the lower worlds. Don't forget that. All the way to the core of the earth. Getting that mesh like symmetrical around the core of the earth is not an easy task, but it's doable. Sometimes you do half the worlds looking at it, and then you turn, like you pretend you turn the world and you do the backside the next And then you fill it with the earth element. Yes, this is the beginning of the 8th house nexa work. That is correct. Is starting to do stuff like this. We're going to talk about that in the 8th house nexa, like the service work that you guys will do after the 8th house nexa egg. But this is how we start learning how to do it. Okay. So then we make sure that the first layer of the earth gets put in, even at the backside, and then the second layer of the earth gets put in, even at the backside. And then the third layer of earth gets put in, even at the backside. And the fourth layer of earth gets put in, even at the backside. And then the fifth. And then you're coating the yolk again in all 5 layers as well. Don't forget that, because it's doubling it up and tripling it up and quadrupling it up. And so we're making sure right now that we have a healthy earth element around the planet. And then we're going to start to see the earth lotus around the planet of the earth. So the earth is now encapsulated in a healthy earth lotus element. And then we put like a brown goo on top of it. On the outside. Some of you guys might want to do a the Gryffindor lasagna. I'm going to say the Gryffindor lotus because it's like the lasagna with the blue paste on the inside. So it's the honeycomb, but like a scale, and then the blue paste is layered on the outside of that, and then the brown goo. And what's going to happen, the brown goo on top of that, and what's going to happen is the dragons are going to light it on fire. And clean and purify the element of earth on the planet. They might like light it up in a gentle way where everything starts to feel calm. And whole and silent. Instead of chaotic or fast or dramatic. All right. Patience is a virtue. So now everything is easier. So we're going to drop the water lotus into our home. And you're going to start to see it emanate into every other tower. And it starts to regrid at the same format, almost on autopilot, in the home tower, through the top and through the bottom, into the placenta, and then into the city yolk, and then around the city yolk, and then the main yolk. So I'm going to say the city yolk, the master yolk, and then the main yolk. And the main yolk is the big, that was our Hufflepuff yolk. And you'll start to see the water spiders begin to manifest. And they look more crystalline. And then we start to see the emanation into the worlds, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5. And then we'll begin to fill up until it creates the water lotus around the planet. And these water lotuses look like an egg lotus. They're not like an unfolded lotus, okay? So this is, I'm hearing a few different opinions. One person's like, this feels really cheap, and I understand. But then I look and the work is getting done, and I can feel the work getting done in the correct way. So then I don't feel like it's cheap. It does feel like cheap just because you're so used to doing so much work for very little result. And then there's another person that goes, oh, all that A&R work really pays off because you can do a little bit of work and have a bigger impact. And we set the stage in all of the other, we did a lot of the work in the beginning to make huge neural connections to all the different towers and the energetic system. part of the reason why the setup is much greater. And we're still on the main Earth lotus, so we're okay. Now on the outside of the main Earth lotus, we're going to put it like a cyan jelly. Kind of the color of Ethiopian blue opal. It's not the Griffin blue paste. It's something else. If you look at the kids program, it's the cyan blue gel around the water element egg. And then we're going to have a dragon light it up, or a number of dragons light it up. It says we have no water in Africa. Like issues. We have issues we need to take care of. So we're going to start to redistribute a weather system that is more balanced and appropriate. When we start building these massive global connections, we can start to do more global weather service. That's more balancing. So we have stronger access. We can do a lot more long distance work as a griffin. It's one of the dimensions. Okay. You see, it doesn't feel so cheap after you get the full global elemental. And this just means when you travel around the planet, this is still your temple. Like, so you have access to the water element no matter which part of the globe you're at in life. So remember, when you're setting your home temple, like the planet is your home. So it helps to make sure that if you travel to Asia, that you still have your connection to the element of water, like, or earth or air. Makes sense. And a healthy elemental connection. Now, if you really want to redo the metallic grid, the metallic weave grid through the planet for the element of water, we can do it one more time. We can do it at a level of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all at once. And we can rebuild that in a Russian folding way. And then at every intersect, we have the dewdrop beads. Now the dewdrop beads look more like Petri sea glass color, but with hints of cyan. But like jelly. It's a dewdrop. It's a don't drop instead of a dewdrop. And then it begins to reestablish the element of water. I think some of you guys might have realized how much it matters to have a healthy elemental connection be built into the planetary grid. Like, you forget that you walk down the street and you might want your element connect. And then we put the salviohexia grid on that really quickly, just in case. And then we refill it with water. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have the cyan jelly one more time on the outside of the earth. And then we have the dragons reconnect and purify. Burn that cyan jelly and activate it with water. And you go all the way down to the bottom of hell, into the core of the earth. Make sure the inner earth grid is good. 5 layers in. All the way through. If you're feeling like your grid is asymmetrical, that's okay. See if you can find a way to auto-correct it with your intention. And that feels nice, actually. Okay. Now we have the element of air. We have the air lotus. And we might actually feel like I can feel mine coming through and it's like blowing up. And I can see it almost like a etheric Patronus. Yeah. I just have little bits of hints of knife rape still coming through, and that's okay. We're going to clean that up very soon. Okay. So I'm feeling pieces of my soul that still haven't been purified out coming in. Like the demon selves that just wants to stab something. And I'm letting it go into the lava. I sit there and I watch it. And I know the difference between myself and somebody else. I know the difference between mine and Hathor's. Okay. And I sit with it. And I burn it out. Because it like wants to destroy this amazing, beautiful magic coming through. I don't really want it to sabotage me. It's the part of me that does not want to let go. So that air element lotus is coming through. And it's so pure and it's so divine that it had to bring up anything that was just totally contrary to that existing in my life. Because that air element lotus is like God. So it brings up my big shadow. And that shadow piece is like, I'm letting go. I'm letting go. Feels a little reptile-y, but it's more human. Shocking. Shocking. I processed out all the reptile stuff a while ago. The bad reptile stuff. All right, so here's our air lotus. And then we have, it plugs into the central column. And then it does the same thing on the activation of the tower. And then our other towers. And then our yoke around our home. And then the city yoke. And then the 4 towers around the city. And then it does the same replication on our twin tower. Our placenta first, and then the twin tower. And then you can start to see the white light in the placenta start to glow and start to come through very clearly. And then the twin tower and the north and the south towers, and then the central tower. And then you start to see the air spiders begin to weave. And it begins to fill in the big yolk, the main yolk. So what you're going to begin to notice is that Hufflepuff's power derives from Gryffindor. So you're always going to be feeding. The higher the tree you are, the more you're going to be feeding other people with more magic. Same thing goes with Ravenclaw. And Ravenclaw and Gryffindor will feed each other because they do things differently. And the Aurors will feed the Griffins and the Ravens, etc. And like the fifth house people will feed the Griffins and the Ravens because they'll be the prefects, the adults in the group. So it works very much like how Harry Potter was set up. Okay, so now we have a good air system. And that keeps room for extreme growth and creativity among the people where prefects should not be tyrannical on. So the prefect needs to pass tyranny in Hesed. That's the vice of Hesed. The prefects must bypass the tyranny vices to be able to really have a certain influence over the other students. We don't want like Umbridge or Percy Weasley, like corrupted ministry or prefects that get very rigid. Okay. All right. So that air is going all the way into the center of the earth, almost to the core. And then we have the air around the earth temple. So we have the lotuses lighting up the towers, the big towers on the antipodal point, the home, the North Pole and the South Pole. And you might see the mesh. The air element is almost like a fluffy marshmallow, but it's a little clearer for the intersect points. If you see hints of blue, that's okay. If you see a glowing white, that's okay. Glowing yellowish white. around the earth, and then you'll start to see the lotus develop on the outside of the earth. And we have a dragon named Airbender. We're going to ask for her and her friends to come forward. Especially when we get the air element glue or goo around the lotus egg on the planet. And it's a flammable glue. It's white. It's like a white high oak cream. Some people might have gray paste. At the worst, I would mix the gray paste in with the white high oak flammable glue. And then light it on fire, set it up, make sure that the metal mesh grid is all the way into the central core of the planet. And when you start to really do it on this wavelength, it doesn't feel so cheap anymore at all. Getting the earth element and the template set up was the main. Now, wires in my spine are growing in the back of my spine to latch onto the grid of the earth element, because I'm mostly like an airbender kind of gal. Shocking. Shocking. And if I can do it with air, then maybe I can get to the other grids too. Air and spirit. I figured in life, if I could figure out everything mentally, then I could do it physically. So I started with that. Somebody's trying to tell me about doing a Rubik's Cube. They're asking me if I can do a Rubik's Cube. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I could learn how to do a Rubik's Cube is my answer. I spent most of my time figuring out quantum paradoxes. But it's a learning. Like, how do I get my DNA to start accessing the element of earth? Like, that's how I spent my time and energy. And then what are all the different metaphysical anomalies that I had to provide boundaries for? traps or holes. And then you have to calculate all the different quantum or all the different holographic mirrors. And that's even scarier. So that's where I spent my time. But I'm glad people want to one-up me with like Rubik's Cube stuff. We'll nerd it out in the future, believe me. When we start getting the rest of the magic on the planet and my brain can start running free, then we'll really be in business. A lot of you guys have like huge tricks up your sleeves and want to one-up me in many different ways. And I highly encourage it. It's much like Misty Copeland being able to one-up me in every single component of her physical form. So I'll just be able to eat shit all day long. And I'll be cool with that. I'm just like Hermione, you know. So. All right, so we got a good air. Now, the glue, hopefully it's set on fire to purify the air. If you set yours on fire a while ago, that's nice. Okay. Next, we have the element of fire. Put it in your central column. And then let that emanate out through the towers and fill in. And then your other towers. I'm hearing this feels cheap, legit. Oh, look, you can see. This feels cheap because you want the fire through the home. Oh, you can see my nipples. Gross, because I got cold real quick. That's why it feels cheap. Okay. So I'm starting to not feel so cheap. We have it through the ceilings and the floors, the tower. And I'm looking for the thought in my brain that doing all this is stupid. All this is a waste of my time. All this is stupid. And all that thought is now burnt out. And I am at the bottom of the cliff. So that's rad. Okay. So now we make sure that it's in the home yolk. If you want to put it in plasm, a fire plasm, we're going to put that through the egg so that it begins to contain the fire, so that it like allows the fire. That's why it felt cheap, because you want the fire plasm. I'm sorry, plasma. God, plasm. I can't even think sometimes. All right, so there's this plasma that begins, it's a conduit, but it's a container. So it's a goo that like is flammable, and then it contains the fire on the inside. It's one of the better ways to run the element of fire. So it feels like lava, but it's not. Make sure that goes all the way down into the bottom of the yolk. Now mine is like a Petri dish clear or like a golden yellowy plasma. There are two that I'm like familiar with working with. Or there's the violet flame plasma, but that's not what we're doing right now. We're just doing regular fire. And then that begins to burn out icky stuff and then purify it. And then dragons might add some more. Around the yolk, around the home. And then we do our city yolk. Man, this needed to get cleaned out. So the city yolk. And then the 4 towers around the city yolk. And then make it a bigger yolk. And then again, put it in a nice plasma bubble. So I'm going to rock it through my body. Helps me move the energy. Crack it through my bones. And then so we got it through the city yolk with the towers, that bigger yolk, that's the master yolk. And then we're going to do the main yolk. And then the big central tower. And then we see fire spiders setting like bombs. They're setting like drop bombs, fire bombs that will explode in the bottom and then start going up, and then the fire spiders are trying to escape. Okay, so that's why we do the plasma. So it kind of protects some of the fire spiders and some of the other animals. And then we do, oh, look, it's starting to purify. The fire bombs coming through is starting to purify any of the bad spiritual energy in the middle of the planet. Pretty intensely. I can feel it coming up through my feet. And I'm at the bottom of the Clippeth. And my crown chakra is half open, half closed. And somebody is connecting the dots that when my crown chakra is closed, I know it's working. When my crown chakra is half open, half closed, it's like maybe it's God. So when you know it's working, it's like it's me instead of it's God. And that's why Lucifer goes fake God, because it's like I still need to be able to do it myself also. And so that's where that kind of Luciferian energy is I need to become a master and not dependent on a parent. So you don't always keep the archetype for closed crown chakra is egotiste. So it's like, I'm against God in every single capacity. But if you could use that very wisely. So if you're against God in every single capacity, but you're trying to become a master, it's a different context. So it actually is a reverse psychology switch where it's like, I am 100% responsible for my reality. And God has 0. So I don't put any faith in God and only faith in myself 100%. And then if I'm doing it, that I know that I can do it the next time and the next time and the next time. And then it no longer is a miracle or a singularity. It is now an actual official talent and skill that I developed on my own. Instead of, I am a prophet, completely dependent on some weird idea that God exists. Maybe he'll show up, maybe he won't. That's bullshit stuff. So like that's sloppy magic. Anyway. Yeah. So I don't encourage you guys to walk around with closed crown chakras all day long. But where you can control it, I'm going to open it, I'm going to close it, I'm going to open it and see what's up, and then I'm going to close it and then see what's up and see where your body's at and then see where your body's not at. Stuff like that. Okay. So now we have, make sure you get the metal wire mesh around the yolk and then the plasma goo all through that yolk. Some of you guys already did that. Some of you guys are still letting the underworld get cleaned out even more. I was still in the underworld cleaning out, feeling it through my feet. And it says I'm definitely not a Slytherin. That's where we're at. And now it's starting to say I'm definitely a witch in Hufflepuff turning into Gryffindor. There's still Hufflepuff stuff. Through my feet. Through the underworld. Now, if you don't like the way that the metal mesh feels with the fire element, paint it in the Griffin blue paint. And that takes away from some of the knife ripery stuff that might show up. That's coming from like old Slytherin Fire Lords. And then make sure it's dipped in the fire plasma. And then let it burn. And then have a dragon light it up. With dragon fire. Maybe the dragon will burn it out. Any of the knife ripe. It's weird how when you use some of the metal energy, what it feels like on the body. And I'm hearing that's because we hate in the hell realms. Well, then maybe you didn't do your own spiritual work. Didn't you get the memo? This is an ascended planet or ascendio planet. Hell realms, that's not allowed to exist. This planet is for ascended masters. Ascended. Not like pretenders. All right. So, oh yay, Brooke still just sent me a blade. All right. So, somebody saying it's so weird how much shade Brooke sends you when she's so fake positive all the time. Yeah. Like, so anyone who's ever been around me or around Brooke knows. So we're at the fire plasma still, getting through the lotus. We're going to do around the globe. We are purifying the last bits of that metallic grid. So we have our global tower with the fire lotus and the plasma all the way through the planet, all the way through the core of the planet. And then we have these metal beads, and the metal beads or the metal mesh With the fire plasma beads, it's actually like the petri dish with the flame inside of it. The petri dish gel with the flame. And you start to feel it all throughout the globe, all the way through the world shell. All those 4 access points will start to glow at like the yolk, like our master yolk. You don't need to do the other ones right now. You can kind of do them. And the plasma is, remember, it's like 5 layers of fire. All the way to the core of the earth, and then on the inside of the earth, and on the back side of the earth, and on the back inside of the earth. And then the fire plasma is on the inside of the earth with the fire. And I'm hearing there's no hell left on the planet. No more hell on the planet. And yes, everyone still has to do their A&R marked paperwork for infinity. Not for infinity, the next 3 generations. I'm hearing, does it decrease each generation? We don't know, but we also know empty cups in life. Because you don't know what you don't know about what's going to happen when you write another page. I'm hearing it's a very Slytherin thing to say, yes, we're at a good status quo now. And it's a very Hufflepuffy thing to move forward. And it's a very Gryffindor-y thing to stick with the law. And just do it anyway. It's like, yes, it's like being healthy and then letting your health and body slide backwards because you were at a state of health and then it decreases. So. All right. So we have a good fire system. Now let's make sure we get our fire lotus egg around the planet. We just did the innards of the planet, but now we need to do the lotus egg and then coat it with an neon orange plasma goo on the outside. This is one of the Hufflepuff gels. Or one of the sauces. The no means no jelly. If you see a bit of a glitter or a shimmer in it, it's because this one's more like the firebender technology. Get that orange goo pasted on the outside of the egg. And then we're gonna have one of the dragons light it up. Maybe Lucifer. And that should start to feel like a good fire element connect. So we'll do the next two on this video. But I'm enjoying sitting in the fire. And I'm feeling safe and comforted and at peace. So everything's just burning now. So we can sit in this for one more minute. And then we're going to dump we're going to double check the placenta, make sure that that lit up, and it did. We're going to dump the purple spirit grape jelly element lotuses down our central tower. We're also going to dump them into this giant central tower in the main yolk, the Hufflepuff yolk. And we're going to get everything gritted up in the grape jelly goo. So we have our home yolk, excuse me, and then our city yolk. We have it at 5 layers. And we have all the other towers. Kind of like watching a drop of food dye dilute itself throughout water and then color in the water. Works at that kind of speed. I'll start to see the spiders doing some weird technology to connect all the towers really well, like a giant yolk spider web. So instead of metal mesh, it looks like a nice actual octahedral spider web. But then a spherical one. I like how they connect. They correct everything after we burn all the demonic energy off the planet. Most of GEBURAH is just burning demons away. It's like fighting the demons and then letting nature take its course afterwards. And then you'll see the great beads on the spider webs, but like the spherical perfection octahedral spider webs. And they might have that beautiful sphere around like each anchor point also, which is even weirder. Like, so then it looks like a giant holographic spider thing. Some people want violet flame to purify out what might be being brought up in some of the other, like the North Pole Tower or the South Pole Tower or stuff like that. Not the pole towers, but the tower to the north and the tower to the south. All right. And then make sure that grape, because there's some really weird dark magic still all around the planet. That's where we're getting at. Just because you're a light worker doesn't mean other witches are light workers. So, like, you need to remember that. And, like, Netzach is closed, and so is Yesod. But they don't know that yet. So we have to make sure it happens. All right. So, like, we're going to be doing the grape jelly throughout the entire. Should see it layered on. Going all the way down. Go all the way down to the core of the earth, because we're still in our main yolk, our Hufflepuff oak yolk. And then we're going to do... So we're going to do the dimensions tomorrow. We're going to finish the elements off tonight. You guys can do it whenever you want to. Spirit grape jelly. So this is where the saffron, those saffron flowers are kind of like little miniature violet flame flowers. So the saffron bubbles and those other towers with the grape jelly, the grape spirit jelly, or just the violet flame bubbles with the grape jellies. All right. Now we're going to make sure we get at least the 5 main layers. So that's like a good 1 layer. We need the layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5, till it's like in a pattern of emanating out the grape jelly or access to the grape jelly. I'm starting to feel that bubble up. But apparently that's like a new element for the planet. What? Like, it's a new element for the planet. Okay. We're not all intergalactic Targaryens. Oh no. Okay. Keep going with the grape jelly. Oh my goodness. Maybe you see those towers light up. They needed to light up, maybe. The 5th layer of that grape jelly. If you're only on 3, that's a good. We're good for 3. And then we have 4. And then make sure, okay, my placenta is filled with the grape jelly very well. And then do it again. Coat it even more into the earth. Even more. Even more. Even more. Now it starts to feel like, starting to feel more like 5 layers. And it says, nobody wants to create sex crimes anymore. So that's like a night. So like that's in an unconscious wavelength. They don't really want to do that. So let's make sure that we continue down that path and keep putting that out there. That's the intention. Okay. Now we do the world shell. You're gonna start seeing the spiders like behaving like trapeze artists, going from one point to another, and creating these giant giant web patterns. And then it starts to bring up a lot of icky magic. Because they haven't even drawn out the patterns. This was a torture planet. And you can feel that very intensely. All right. So I'm going to take my wand and help the spiders, creating the sacred geometry web patterns, but sprayed with the grape jelly around the world shell in a spherical way. And if we think about what happened to Jesus, we understand that this was a torture planet. And just the idea of how Jesus died and the crucifixion was another form of torture on everyone. So, nobody really gets the paradox of that. So we needed to break that pattern for real Tiferet. That we weren't all going to be tortured to death just to ascend. No. Not in that kind of way. Maybe in a I have to eat well and exercise and get a job kind of way. That's okay. That's just life. Okay, so making sure that the grape jelly bubble is filling up the planet and making sure that those webs go into the planet also with the grape jelly beads all the way around the core of the earth and then the backside of the earth. And making sure that goes all the way through. And then we fill that in with the grape jelly. And then so we've got the world shell. Maybe we have one layer of grape jelly in. Let's try to get 2. 3. Now I'm seeing here, yay, we can start to think that this might be a Yesod planet instead of a Malkuth planet. Yay! Someday we'll get it to a Tiferet planet. Maybe in 100 years. We'll see. That's why everything looks like shit, by the way. It's because it's a Malkuth planet. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when we get to make it into a Hode planet? Oh, man. One of my best memories when I moved to London was being outside the Kensington Palace inside the fairy gardens, right? In Hyde Park. And you could see just the layer, like, around Earth, and it was like Malkuth. Like, this is the extent of what exists on the planet. This is the highest, like, and one of the prettiest parks on the planet. And it's Malkuth. Lucifer jokes with me a lot about all of it. Because he did a lot of work just to get it to this level. And then we have more work to do. In the Yesod. Not Yesod. I wanted to say grape jelly. You guys still have to do the 8th house service work for Malkuth on the planet. Because I have to. Until it's done. Right now I'm at, for the underworld, where am I at? I have 5, 10. I have 12 more layers on the underworld to do for Malkuth. Okay. That's how you get the 8th house nexa, by the way, though. Like, you do things like go die for a whale, or you go and you, like, spend 3 hours a day doing a crystal yoke temple on the planet and on the intergalactic component that you are assigned to. So here we are. We're still the grape jelly. Now we're getting to, like, layer 5. Okay. We have the grape jelly, lotus egg around the planet. And then we're going to have the violet flame plasma, and we're going to light it up with Dino Star. Dino Star is going to light that one up. If you put the violet flame plasma glue on the outside of the grape jelly, then she'll light it even better. She has access to some of the higher worlds and higher magics that Lucy doesn't. Okay, so that's starting to feel nice. I needed to make sure that got painted all the way around. I got lit through the entire planet. Somebody was like, Dino Star knife rapes. Okay, so so like Dino Star, Lucy's and Dino Star's pages are online. I also have already written up the Upper Worlds, and you guys have not done any of them yet. So, and we cleaned Dino Star and Lucifer out in our first dragon cleaning circle. So you need to know that. Now, most people look at Lucifer and are afraid of the dark dragon because Lucifer will stab people. But then they'll look at the white dragon and think that the white dragon is divine or holy. And this is a problem because Dino Star is not necessarily clean and she's cunty, okay? And so they make assumptions based off the color of the dragon, which is bad. That's a bad thing to do in life. Charlie doesn't really knife rape that much, and neither does Pearl. And Pearl is the cleanest out of all of them. And Pearl is very, very anti-knife rapery. And she is a pearl dragon. And Charlie is very old and slow and doesn't really knife rape just based off of that. It's different. So you guys need to be very mindful when you're working with the dragons that you are cleaning them out ASAP. And if you do not like the feeling that Lucifer still has, because we haven't done Lucifer's aura levels yet, then you can write out some pages for Lucifer, but you should do them for yourself and your own dragons first. And maybe you should stay away from Lucifer. Unless you're friends with him. And if you're friends with him, you'll write out a few pages instead of complain. Okay. Does everybody understand the dynamics here? All right. So then we got the element of ether. And we have this gray, pasty, dusty, airy, smoky ether element lotus. We put it at all the towers, the main ones. And we watch those unfold. They will open up and they will root into the central columns and root and grow like an organic it's much like the Collie Pink Lily. And then we do all the other 4 towers around those, and then the Seraphim Soul Star octahedrons. And you're going to start to see an unfolding. It will start mostly in your home. And it will go through all the different levels, all 5 layers. Through the city, through the master yoke, through the main yoke, And then in through the world shell. You'll put those lotuses at the top of each of those other 3 towers. And the stamen of your home tower will grow up and go higher and higher and higher. And then all the roots, all the other towers will come together all the way down to the core of the earth. This is a really good, like, fairy nature law. How we're going to do magic is going to be like fairy nature law level magic instead of robot technology magic. So we're going to keep everything organic instead of overly dogmatic or rigid, because we need a sense of creativity and imagination in our daily life. That's part of living. So people in GEBURAH pass Netzach. They've graduated Netzach, so they understand creativity is important. So they're not overly, like, they're disciplined, but they're not disciplined to the point where it takes away from the oxygen of life. That's a Hode robot oppression reality. So this ether element is coming through the planet. And then we're going to get that petri dish gel coming through. And then goes all the way down to the core of the planet. Now this is why you need A&R marks. By the time you hit GEBURAH, it's because you get all this power and you're like super creative. And you're like, yeah, but there are boundaries. There are boundaries that I'm not allowed to ever cross, and I made agreements with myself, and I did all this crazy, repetitive, redundant work that feels like Professor Umbridge hitting me with a sledgehammer for 3 years, maybe, to get all of those work marks completed, and then you just get creative liberty and freedom. And isn't that wonderful? So it's a reward to be able to get into Gryffindor and in Ravenclaw. It's a reward. It is not a mandatory assignment. So those A&R marks are like, yay, I achieved that level. It's all about, like, you do your push-ups and your sit-ups, and then you can do all the fancy ballerina dancing of you to your heart's desire. Okay, so it's that in life. So we need just a little bit more of that healthy etheric goo around the planet Earth, and then we put it in the glowing etheric lotus. The lotus egg. And then we paint on like a lilac saffron color paint on the etheric lotus egg. And then we mix it in with a cloudy dust. And then we ask a confessor dragon to light it up. We're gonna have the dragon milk light it up. I'm starting to feel nice and clean. And I'm resituating and reevaluating my entire schedule. As I look and I go, oh, I have 5 videos to get done tonight. And I'm thinking, So now I might be much more honest and real with myself about where I can do my work, where I don't feel like a Nazi on myself, and where I can still see a sense of discipline and good work ethic and productivity, but where I'm not overworking myself. So we're starting to heal some of, if I'm healing my brain from that level in the Clippeth, we're doing better then. Take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out. So tomorrow will be the elements advanced and then the 0 out dimensions. Okay, Holly Wren out.